this morning if you have from this wonderful endeavor, a very unique project, the Iqra Book Festival. And my name is Sajid Qayyum. I'm one of the trustees of the ARC and Radio Ramadan and founding member of the radio station. And this today comes to you by courtesy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of God, and also, of course, our wonderful sponsors today, Al Khair Foundation and Human Relief Foundation. So if you enjoyed any of today's book readings, excerpts, interviews, etc., please do show your support for these wonderful charities by going to the websites and giving some money in that way. But also show your support by going and finding out about the authors. In the chat section, the slides here, we'll put up links where you can get the books. I'll put the link to that previous book Dr. Sheena was talking about, Aziz Bhatti. And also throughout the day, many books that I mentioned will put up there. And if you have any questions to today's speakers, please do so. I'm going to move straight on to our next session, which is Shrabani Basu, talking about her book, Spy Princess, The Life of Noor Inayat Khan. And to introduce that section, I'm very privileged to introduce Dr. Guy Bowman, who is also one of our authors today. So he's playing both sides today, interviewer and interviewee. And he will let you know about his particular area of specialism. I was very blessed to meet him at one of the Colourful Heritage events in Glasgow, I think a year or two ago. A wonderful individual, a very passionate individual about his subject. But I'll let him introduce himself and also Shrabani about her book about Inayat.
Thank you, Sajid. Welcome, everyone. Good morning. Lovely to see you. I can't see many of you, but I know that you're there. Good morning, Shrabani. How are you this morning?
Morning. I'm good. Looking forward to this.
Excellent. Nice to see you. So just by way of introduction, I should say that Shrabani Basu was born in Kolkata, grew up in an interesting variety of places, including South Asian capitals, Kathmandu and Delhi and Dhaka, studied history, and is a journalist, has been a journalist for many years in South Asia and in the UK. Has interviewed a number of extraordinary people, including Benazir Bhutto and Sheikh Hasina and Salman Rushdie and Nirad Chaudhry, and not forgetting Viv Richards, the cricketer, which has been a great person to interview, and has written a number of books. So a book about Victoria and Abdul, possibly your greatest success, which then led to a film. The first title simply called Curry, which sounds like a good title for a book about the Indian soldiers in the Great War in the Western Front for King and Another Country, and a book coming out next year, The Mystery of a Parsi Lawyer, and the book that we're here to talk about today, which is Spy Princess, the story of Noor Inayat Khan. And Shrabani's work around this extraordinary woman, Noor Inayat Khan, has included a lot of advocacy, including the Noor Inayat Khan Memorial Trust, which the actual memorial was erected in 2012, a postage stamp, which I had lots of, but unfortunately have used them all, a wonderful British postage stamp with a photo of Noor on it, and a blue plaque this year. So it's a great time really to be recalling this fantastic woman and her contribution. I think so. I mean, the book was originally published in 2006, so it's it's clearly continues to go on and to have an impact. Let's start, if you're ready, Shrabani, with a reading from the book. So if you could read us something from your book, that'd be great.
Sure. Right. So hello, everybody. It's lovely to be here in the morning. I know you're all across time zones. Thanks for joining. So Guy showed you a lovely cover, and this is another cover I'd like to show you, Spy Princess, the original one. And I will read from it. It's this is the bit just before Noor leaves on her secret mission. So for those of you who don't know, Noor was a secret agent, and this is the last night before she is flying to Paris in the Second World War. On the afternoon of 16th June, Vera Atkins called for Noor at Orchard Court in an open car. This estate car had been nicknamed the hearse by the SOE. They drove through the Sussex countryside in full summer bloom with honeysuckle and marguerites. Noor hardly said a word. Vera Atkins noticed she had a serene expression on her face and a half smile playing on her lips. She always felt that Noor was very self-contained, had an unworldly idealism. It was nearly evening by the time they reached Tangmere in Sussex and stopped outside the little ivy-covered cottage just opposite the main gates of the RAF station. It was partly hidden by tall hedges and could hardly be seen from the road. Though it was a summer evening, all the doors and windows were shut, and the silence was almost eerie. But as the two women stepped inside, they found the hall was full of smoke and they could hear men's voices. After a hearty farewell supper, Vera Atkins led Noor upstairs to a room. Noor started to get ready, putting on her green oilskin coat. In her handbag was a French identity card, ration card, and her Webley pistol. The rest of her belongings, radio, clothes, personal effects, would be parachuted separately, so she did not have to carry them with her. Carrying the pistol was a precautionary step in case they were ambushed as soon as they landed. Vera Atkins did the usual last-minute pocket check for English cigarettes, English bus tickets, or English money, anything that could risk the agent's life if discovered. As she was getting ready, Noor noticed a silver bird on Vera Atkins' suit and remarked how lovely it was and how Vera always managed to look so smart. She herself, she felt, inevitably looked plain. The older woman took off the bird and pinned it on Noor's lapel. When Noor protested, she said, "It's a little bird. It will bring you luck." Soon there was a knock on the door, signaling that it was time to go. The full moon shone high in the sky. A large Ford estate car was waiting to take them to the airstrip. There, silhouetted against the night sky, she could see the two Lysanders waiting for their passengers. Noor stepped out into the night and walked on English soil for the last time. She felt she was keeping her promise to the people of France. She was going back. In France that evening, waiting agents received a message in the middle of an entertainment program on the BBC French service. It said, "Jasmine is playing her flute." It was the code telling them that Noor was coming. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you, Shrabani. That's a beautiful little extract. And I love that little bird on the lapel and the gift to Noor as she went off to France.
Yeah.
So I've got some slides here, which I'm going to put on,
Okay.
and I'm going to, which are the, so hopefully people can see that now.
Okay.
Great. So, and for those people who don't know, who Noor was, or only know a little bit, perhaps can you give us a summary of her story, please?
Right. So Noor Inayat Khan was a secret agent in the Second World War, but I will just get back to giving you her background, because how did a young Indian woman land up in this heart of the war in Europe? So let's go back to her life history. She is born in Moscow in 1914 to an Indian father. You can see her father. He is holding little Noor there. His name is Hazrat Inayat Khan, and he was a Sufi who was originally from Baroda in Western India. And he was asked by his Sufi teacher to take Sufism to the West. So he's the first person who brings the Indian, he was the, to bring the Sufism from Hyderabad. So this is the Indian strain of Sufism. There are various strains of Sufism, as I'm sure all the audience here knows. And so he took this abroad. He went with his brothers to the US. And I think there's a slide of all the brothers, Guy, maybe? Oh, so sorry, this is, no. So we'll go to the brothers in a while. So they set up a group called the Royal Musicians of Hindustan. And we'll go back one slide, sorry. And while they were on the concert, he met this beautiful lady. She's American. Her name is Ray Baker. And they fall in love instantly and they get married. They come to London and they get married. And then they go back to, they go to Moscow, and Noor is born in Moscow, as you can see. She is called Babuli at home. But this is 1914 and Moscow is going through a really turbulent time. So then the family come back to London. So here they are. We move to the next and one more. Yep, thanks. And you can see, no, one back.
Sorry.
Thanks, Mark. This is the family. I think this photograph is in London, in Gordon Square, where they lived. And in London, they have 3 more children. So now they are, 4. Noor has 3 siblings. Her eldest brother, the second one after her, is Vilayat, then Hidayat, and the little one is Claire, her younger sister. Standing at the back are the 2 brothers. So it was a large house that they lived in. There was a lot of music. Inayat Khan gave a lot of talks. They stayed there for 6 years. But he was being watched by the British government because they felt he was he believed in Indian independence. He had sung songs for Gandhi. He was a patriot. And they were watching him. They thought he's a spy. And he was advised to go to France. They said France is friendlier to the Indians, and he moved to France with his family. So once again, the family moved. And here in France, on the outskirts of Paris, next slide, please. Yeah, they live in this beautiful large house donated by a Sufi follower. It's called Fazl Manzil, which means house of blessing. And this is the house in which Noor grows up. So this is where she's a young adult. As we can see, all the children, they wear these Indian clothes. They've all learned musical instruments. They form a quartet. Can we have the next slide? There they are in there. So Noor played the harp. She is here in the sari playing the harp. Her younger sister Claire is there. Claire used to play the piano. Vilayat played the cello, and Hidayat played the violin. So you can see it's a very talented family. And Noor now goes to the Sorbonne. She studies child psychology. She also studies music under Nadia Boulanger. And at this time, she falls in love with a Jewish musician, but there's lots of objections from the family. And, sorry, I have a message. Please tilt your screen down. Is that better?
Even a bit more slack. That's great. That's good, Shrabani.
Is that better? Sorry, you're just seeing the top of my head there. Okay, right. So she learns child psychology, and she falls in love, but the family don't object to him. So she's sort of torn between her family and her love life. She starts writing children's stories, and she's published in 1939. But she writes the 20 Jataka tales, children's stories. But this is 1939. War clouds are gathering in Europe. All dreams for this young, dreamy musician writer are going to end. And 1940, with the German army just outside Paris, she and her brother Vilayat sit down and they decide that they are Sufis, but they're going to go. They believe in nonviolence, but they're going to go to Europe, to England, and they are going to volunteer for the war effort. So they take this very crucial decision. They, with all the other refugees leaving Paris, they go to England. And can we have the next slide, Guy? So this Noor is now a young adult. She has learned, no, sorry, we go back. Yeah, we'll stay there. Yeah. So Noor, who has learned the Veena, is a dreamer, is now going to go to London, and she volunteers. If we move on, she now volunteers for the Women's Auxiliary Air Force. So this is Noor in her WAF uniform, and suddenly, from being very sort of genteel company of the known as the Pirzadi, daughter of the Pir Pirzadi, Noorun Nisa Inayat Khan, this beautiful title, very cushioned by her family, she suddenly just becomes a number in a uniform, sleeping in a Nissan hut, and the second phase of her life begins. But very, she does feel very liberated. Suddenly, all these men who always surrounded her, father had died when she was young, but there were the uncles who took a very sort of strong position. There are her brothers, and suddenly she's free. She's trains as a radio operator. She becomes she's very good at the job, but very quickly she is recruited by a secret organization called the Special Operations Executive, and this secret organization is looking out for people with language skills. She speaks fluent French. She's a good radio operator. She's recruited. The interview is really short. She's told she'll be sent as a secret agent to Paris undercover So she will have a false identity. She will not be in uniform. And if she is caught, she will be shot. Will she take the job? And Noor, being Noor, says yes. So she flies, you saw that extract, she's trained, and then she flies to France undercover. And maybe Guy, we can then move on to the next stage of the story. This is Noor in as a secret agent, looking very different from all those earlier photographs you saw of her. She
looks older, doesn't she, in that photo? Excuse me.
Yes, she does, doesn't she? And there is this, I don't know, something in her eyes. There's an angry look, a very determined look. Gone is that gentle face. I think this is when she is been thrown in the heart of it. And you can see that determination in her face. Because, as a radio operator, it was one of the most dangerous areas in the field. They could be heard as they transmitted. They could be caught because they're carrying this heavy suitcase along with them. They have to put up an aerial, which is hard. They can be seen putting up this aerial. She has so many narrow escapes. But she survives for 3 months doing crucial work while the rest of her circuit are arrested and they collapse. She becomes the last secret agent link between London and Paris and plays a crucial role, doing the job of 6 radio operators. But eventually she is betrayed. And once she's betrayed, she's arrested. Then she is tortured, interrogated. This is where the really dark side begins. And 10 months she is kept in a prison, tortured regularly. And on the 13th of September, she is taken to Dachau concentration camp, where she is brutally tortured again and executed. But she goes down screaming liberté, so the Germans can't break her spirit. And for me, that is Noor's story. That is where she is inspiring. These are the gates of Dachau, where, as you can see, it's marked pride. It was written on every gate. It means work will set you free, but very few were set free. This was a lie, as they were, they all died in the concentration camp. Noor herself was tortured, and then I think there might be another slide of this is the plaque in Dachau, in the remembrance room in Dachau, which Madeleine was her code name. So it is to Madeleine of the Resistance, as she was known in France. Prisoner of Dachau, and her radio operator under Buckmaster. She was eventually awarded the highest civilian honor from Britain, which is the George Cross, which you can see listed there. And France gave her the Croix de Guerre. So she was highly honored. But over the years, her story was forgotten, Guy. So that is the unfortunate thing. We can talk about that.
Thank you. That's fascinating. And thank you for that very swift summary of her life. And I guess one of the crucial questions I think about Noor is about identity. About the issue of identity. So she was, a musician. She was a writer. She was a radio operator. She had, her nationality is interesting in that she was, she lived most of her life in France. She was British, she was Indian, but she was born in Russia. She spoke many languages. She was a linguist. As a spy, her job was to take on a new identity. She became Madeleine. So she was there, who was she? In terms of religion, she was from a Sufi family, and yet when she registered with the WAAF, she put down her religion as Church of England. So there's lots of kind of overlapping things here. And your book is called Spy Princess, which draws on the fact that she's descended from Tipu Sultan. So many different, and I wonder if she had survived and if she had had the opportunity to write her autobiography, what might she have called it? What identity do you think she would have assumed for her autobiography?
That's really interesting. She always described herself as a citizen of the world. And she would tell her friend, who I spoke to, Jean Overton Fuller, that if this war, after this war, she would love to work in something like, I think, well, the UN didn't exist then, but she, I think, sort of foresaw something like the UN, where she would do work, bringing countries together. She wanted to build bridges. And but also she was fiercely, like her father, who was a, as I mentioned, he was a strong nationalist. Nationalist in today's terms is not a good word, but let's say freedom fighter. So he believed in Indian independence, and he told them that you have the blood of Tipu Sultan in your veins. And I think that gave them a lot of courage, a lot of, we all know, I think most of the people here know who Tipu Sultan was. He was known as the Tiger of Mysore. He was a ruler of Mysore, and he famously died fighting the British. So she is descended from this line, and she was asked at a radio interview with the RAF where her loyalties lay. She was asked, completely frankly. And this is 1940, when all the top Indian leaders are actually in jail. As soon as the war broke out, all the top, Gandhi, Nehru, they've all been taken, they've all been put in jail. And she's very aware of this. She is an admirer of Nehru, Gandhi, and she tells them very frankly, she says, at this moment, it is important to win this war. But after the war is over, I will go back to supporting Indian independence. And they are shocked. They are absolutely shocked. But they believe her because there is something about her that, says she's speaking the truth. She's not hiding, saying, I'm just on your side. I'm on your side for now. And she makes it very clear. And, they recruit her. So that's, I think that was her identity. She's a citizen of the world, and she believed in humanity.
So she could have, she could have gone on to some extraordinary things after the war, could she not? As her brother did, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's, we've had a question, which I think I'm going to pick up from, which about films. So that there is a film about Noor coming out quite soon. It's called A Call to Spy. And I'm wondering, given your experience of film adaptation of Victoria and Abdul, what would you like to see in a film version of Noor's story? And what do you think are the pros and cons of making movies out of true stories like this?
Right. So when Victoria and Abdul is actually my own book, so they optioned my book. So I was a consultant and involved with the film, which is very different from A Call to Spy. A Call to Spy is not optioned. It's not based on my book. I'm not a consultant. I have nothing to do with it. They've used, Noor is one of the characters. I believe it is. I haven't seen it. I believe it's about Vera Atkins and two of her agents, and Virginia Hall and Noor Inayat Khan. So she's one of the characters. I haven't seen it, so I can't comment about it. Yes, it's if my own book has been optioned for television. So fingers crossed, if we see it, I will be involved with that one. That will be Spy Princess. And for me, it's really important that Noor's story is told correctly. This Noor's story has been optioned by many, including Hollywood, and I actually took back a script because I did not approve of that script. Because for me, Noor's story has to be told in the proper and the correct way, because she is a very special person. And, with all the campaigning I've done, it's quite obvious that this character to me is very important. She's inspiring. A story has to be told correctly. There are various versions that often go out, which are wrong. And, she's not somebody who's just a secret agent who, she's a Sufi. She meditates. There's something deep about her philosophy, and all this has to come out in the film. She's not just somebody who goes to war. She's not a trained soldier. She's not a gun happy, trigger happy secret agent. She's no James Bond, So I think that is the crucial difference. So the heart of Noor, the spirit she stood for, has to come out in any adaptation. And hopefully the one that's being adapted from my book will come out. So.
Thank you. That's fascinating. And clearly there are many ways that you can present her. She is a complex character and many different possibilities. And part of that is a process of transformation, isn't it? It's a process of growing and learning and becoming a new person.
Mm-hmm.
We are getting a bit short of time. I'm just going to ask you about memorialization. So with the plaque that has been unveiled this year, the memorial statue that's been there for a few years and so forth, and all of that is within the context of things that have been happening this year, like the statue in Bristol of Colston, the slave trader, coming down, and lots of new ideas about about memorialization and how that works and what's the relationship between that and history. What do you think? How do you put the importance of having Noor in the public domain like that?
Absolutely. I mean, when we campaigned for her, this is before Black Lives Matter happened. So, this campaign started long back. First, I campaigned for her blue plaque because there was no blue plaque for an Indian woman, and I felt, that had to be done, especially in Noor's case. So that took 14 years. But the memorial for Noor I started it in the campaign in 2010, and we had it by 2012. It was an intense campaign where we lobbied with peers, with prominent people. Then we raised funds, we had concerts, we had events at the House of Commons, and finally Princess Anne unveiled it in 2012. I think I have a slide, Guy, if you'd like to share, of the memorial.
I'm not sure that we have that one.
Of the memorial, I should have sent it. No. Oh, okay, sorry. If you go right, yep, there it is.
Beg your pardon. Yeah, there it is.
Yeah. So after this one, yeah.
There's the memorial.
So this is the Noor's memorial at Gordon Square. This was unveiled. It's a beautiful memorial. So Gordon Square is the house where she lived as a child, and Tabberton Street is the last house she left from. And for me, it's really important that this was again the first statue of an Indian woman, of any South Asian woman in Britain, in a public space. So can you imagine this gap? London is full of statues of men, largely military or royal or whatever. There are very few of women. You can probably count them, and Noor is one of them. So that is brilliant. For me, it's about more representation. She's visited by people from all over the world. I know there are messages left there, flowers left there always. And she stands for, Jewish people come and put stones over there. I know that the students there play Holi with her, and the festival of Holi. You can see I've seen photographs of all the Indian students coming and putting Holi on her. And we also do her Urs on 13 September. Every year, except for this year, we always have her Urs at Gordon Square, and it's attended by so many people. The numbers are growing. Afterwards, we have coffee and cake. We do have a little Sufi ceremony, and that is Noor. She combines, everybody and brings people together. So for me, memorials like this are really important. They represent somebody else, the other side of Britain that nobody knows about, and people who've contributed to this country.
A massive contribution not only to this country but also to France as well, where she is extremely well remembered as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I have a photo of the blue plaque if you'd like to bring that up. So in August this year, after 14 years, we got the blue plaque, and this is outside her house on number 4 Tabberton Street. So anybody who visits London, I would really ask you to, visit Gordon Square. You'll see the memorial in the square, and just next to it, 2 minutes away, is the house. And this is her blue plaque there. So it is, it's an area which is, belongs to the University of London. So there are lots of students, international students, and this, I think, keeps her story alive. Really does. People stop by and they watch it.
Fantastic, and a testament not only to her but to your hard work, Shrabani. So I'm going to say thank you very much, and I'm going to hand back to Sajid, who may have got some questions from the people.
Okay, thank you, Guy. It was lovely.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Hello, Shrabani, and thank you very much for that slice of Noor Inayat's life. It's a shame that we've got such limited time here. This is the modern age of sound bites and small snippets of people's books and lives. Obviously, years and years of your work and passion. A couple of queries. I wanted to just pose to you from some of our viewers out there. You've covered this topic, the first one I want to ask, which is a very simple question, is how did you discover her? How did you come across Noor Inayat?
So it was actually 25 years ago. It was the 50th anniversary of VE Day. And I'm a journalist, so I'm always doing these stories. And I was always been interested in the contribution of Indians. When I say Indians, I mean undivided India, obviously, to both wars, First World War, where I've written a book, and the Second World War. So there was a large spread in one of the Sunday newspapers about the Indian contribution. And, among all these photos of, a lot of turbaned Indian men, very good looking, handsome soldiers, in the corner, there was a photograph, tiny photograph of a woman in this WAF uniform that I showed. And being a woman myself, I was drawn to that tiny photograph. And there was nothing about it. It was just a caption saying Noor Inayat Khan, radio operator, killed in Dhaka, George Cross. Just like, 4 bullet points. And I said, my goodness, who is this woman? How did she land up in the heart of the war in Europe? Where is she from? Was she like a Mata Hari character? My head was buzzing with questions when I saw that. And that's how it started. I just started trying, because she had the George Cross. I first got that citation and then one after the other. And then by 2003, her Secret Service records were declassified. So, declassified means they are made public at the National Archives. So I just applied straight away. I was the first to go read these files. And that is the whole record of how she's recruited, trained. It was like, it was like a treasure trove. And of course, I spoke to her family, her brothers, and her cousins, and just put the whole jigsaw puzzle together.
Fantastic. Sounds like an amazing journey that you took, and it's wonderful to have that, not necessarily ratified, but to have that blue plaque eventually being put up, which is phenomenal work. And I should look forward to next time in London. I'm going to try and take my family and see that blue plaque and that wonderful bust actually as well. Looks amazing. And it's nice how you say it's juxtaposed next to these kind of very formal, no doubt large men that you can so used to seeing in these places. One of the other questions which you have touched upon is regarding her legacy and what it means to women, especially a woman of a diverse background and an Asian background for that matter, here particularly in the UK. What does her life mean? I mean, it was fascinating to see. I've always seen the picture of Noor Inayat in her uniform. That's the classic one that you see. I never saw the kind of the other version you showed with the shirt on and so forth. With the kind of almost softer version of her. And no doubt, obviously, she was breaking so many barriers. One being a woman in that time in war. But two also being from an Asian background. What do you think that means for young Asian women today here in the UK? Look to her.
Yeah, well, that's really important because I write in my book that she came from a conservative family. It was very patriarchal. She was going to have an arranged marriage at the age of 13. Would you believe it? And none of this would have happened, but her father died. And then, this marriage never took place. She would have been married to somebody in Baroda and gone back into India. Goodness knows what would have, what her future would have been then. But the thing is, it didn't happen. And then she went her own way. She was quite stubborn, though the uncles disapproved of her going in there into, volunteering for the war effort. She did it. So for me, I've done, I do talks everywhere, and I've done some in schools in Manchester where ethnic minority, it's largely Muslim areas, largely Muslim schools. And they did a project and they invited me to give a talk. And they said, just ask these, they were year 6 girls who may not have gone to university. Large families may have just, looked after their younger children afterwards, got married. And after the talk, they said, if Noor Inayat Khan could do this when she was 30, when she was just in her 20s, so focused, and in the 1940s, it inspires us. And yes, I will go to university. And I was just that day, I had tears because I said, even if you can make one person change your mind and want to go to university, want to achieve something, I've done my bit. I've done something, I've achieved something. So for me, Noor's story inspires. And that is beautiful. She inspires young Muslim women. I get so many letters. She inspires everybody. She gives courage. I've had people, white people from Australia writing to me that they're going to have operations and they were thinking of the pain. And then they thought of Noor and Noor's pain and felt strengthened. And that is amazing. Across, I've never even been to Australia to get a, email like that from somebody I don't know is very moving. So I think she appeals to such a wide range of people. It's truly heartening. And I think that is why she needs to be remembered.
Thank you very much for that. And just to finish off, a question really, again, to do with what, who she reaches out to and what her legacy is. In this day and age of Brexit, of divisiveness, of the politics of division, etc., that we see around the world today, what do you think she says to the far right, and what do you think she says, to bridging those divides in some way?
Well, Noor sacrificed her life in the fight against fascism. And as we know, neo-fascists are still rising all around. You still see swastikas and tattoos, and there is so much of hate. There is anti-Semitism, there is Islamophobia, both things happening. Somebody like Noor would, she represents the fight against all these forces. She is a Muslim, she's a Sufi, but she believes in all religions. And it's so important to remember that there's somebody who sacrificed her life to fight against these divisive tendencies. And, we must make sure that it was worth it. This sacrifice that she made should heal, not divide. I'm an idealist, but, there we are.
That's the way to live life, I think. And just lastly, do you think she'll ever make it on the £5 note?
Well, the £50 note was, went to a scientist, so Noor fell out, and it went to Alan Turing. But now there's a currency for there's a campaign for the 50p coin, so it's for coins. So yes, everybody here who wants to see her face on that, do write to the Royal Mint, write to Chancellor Rishi Sunak. It's not a campaign led by me, but I'm obviously supporting it. It's led by Zehra Saidi, who's has a group called We Too Built Britain, and she thought Noor needed to be on this coin. So support her and write to, just tweet, Facebook, whatever, social media, say Noor needs to be on that 50p coin.
Sounds good. That's fantastic. A wonderful way to finish today's interview. Thank you very much, Shrabani, for giving your time today. And we're going to move on just now. We'll post those links up as well. In fact, I think most of your books are available on the historypress.co.uk. It's been posted up on the group here, and also on bloomsbury.com, where your books are there as well, available, not just in their nights, but your other books as well, which we can all get and hopefully share in that passion. But thank you very much for your time today. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me. All the best with the festival. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was a wonderful interview there by Guy on Shrabani Basu about her book about Noor Inayat Khan, the spy. We're coming back in a few minutes' time to Dr. Guy, who will be talking about his book, The Indian Contingent and the Muslim Soldiers of Dunkirk. And we're back in a few minutes' time. It's time for you to grab a cup of coffee or tea. Don't forget, straight back in about 4 minutes' time.